Hello, welcome back to the third speedrun of day 6, and in this speedrun we will be covering radical or radicand functions. So let's jump right in. So what is a radical function? A radical function is a function that looks like this, where you have the square root of a linear equation, say ax plus b. This has to be the square root, and So there are some restrictions, of course, because of the radical. So first of all, the function's domain will be, when ax plus b is greater than 0, since greater or equal to 0, since you can't have you can't square root or have the radical of negative numbers, at least for now. The range will be simply when y is greater or equal to 0, since the radical function, the output, which is y, can never be less than 0. So yeah, let's jump right into some questions. There are not a lot, so we need to simply determine the domain and range of some functions. So the first function is y is equal to x minus 2. Well, the domain of this function will be when x minus 2 is greater or equal to 0. In other words, when x is greater or equal to 2. The range of this function will simply be y is greater than 0 or equal to 0, since the square root of x minus 2 can never be less than 0. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first one down. In the next one, we want to have y is equal to 1 plus square root 2 minus 4x. So, find the domain and range again. The domain will be as long as 2 minus 4x is greater or equal to 0. And so, 2 minus 4x will be 0 when x is equal to when x is equal to 1/2. So x simply has to be greater or equal to 1/2 in the domain. There will be no values of x less than 1/2. For the range, it's not y equals 0 anymore, so the minimum value for this function here is 0. But since we're adding 1, this means y will be greater or equal always to 1. So actually, y is greater or equal to 1. Okay. And on to the final one. So we have y is equal to negative 2 times x minus 1. So what's the domain of this function? The domain of this function is still when the square root of x minus 1 has to be greater or equal to 0. So in this case, x just has to be greater or equal to 1. The range is a bit different, however. So as you can see, it's the negative 2 in front. The least value that the square root can have is 0, but since it's negative 2, this time the range will actually be y is less than or equal to 0. Since if just this x minus 1 part is greater than 0, say it's 1, then the value of y will be negative 2. And so there will be no positive values of y for this function. So that was a pretty fast speedrun. That's all you need to know about radical functions, and I hope to catch you in the next speedrun. See you there.